There's no place like the Cube.
Welcome to Joy in the Breakthrough, a podcast where we'll be talking to a wide range of leaders from different generations and backgrounds. Leaders who have found power in being broken open. I'm Connie Lindsey.
And I'm Anna Valencia. We are your hosts, and we believe that our challenges can lead to breakthroughs, and we want to share these insights with you.
We hope these stories will inspire you to find the I'm possible in you.
This season, Connie and I have explored self-worth, living in your purpose on purpose, managing crucial conversations and conflict, ageism, and what it means to take risks. Each conversation has been so rich, but there's one topic we've never discussed: the men in our lives, John and Reyahd. This is going to be the most vulnerable either of us have ever been on a podcast, so we're taking lots of deep breaths over here. But we know sharing these experiences and lessons we have learned along the way may help our listeners navigate the intimate relationships in their lives too. Because we know this podcast North Star has always been about pouring back into others and sharing the wisdom that has been poured into us.
Oh, Anna, you're right. This is the final frontier. And when we think about our own authenticity, talking about from a values perspective, things we care about and what we do. But this really, for me, takes it to the ultimate level. And it is talking about the men in our lives, our relationships, and just the various ways that we have navigated through. We talk about joy in the breakthrough, and being in a relationship, a marriage has really helped me to break through in a lot of different ways. And I'm excited for us to talk about that today.
Absolutely. We're going to continue to explore the highs and lows of being married. What does it take to balance it all? Or as Connie would say, work-life integration with competing callings, challenges, and priorities. A lot of times I get questions about how do I balance, a work life with a spouse, a child? How do I keep a marriage strong? And Connie, as you know, I had a kind of calling earlier this year to start a marriage life group at church, which was a whole other new frontier and breakthrough to joy for me as well. So I thought it might be useful to bring this conversation to the podcast, to our listeners. I know a lot of our mutuals are constantly trying to figure out the balance, but we don't often have the room to discuss it, a safe and brave space. Well, this pod is a safe and brave space for us to dig deep. Maybe we can remind our people they are not alone, while giving our audience an opportunity to hear and learn from our most sacred relationships. So we decide to have our husbands join the conversation today.
So I think it's important, each of us, both Anna and I, have been in our relationships for different lengths of time, have different approaches. And what I found most interesting about our conversations and having our spouses on was the ability for us to, be a little vulnerable, but also show some of the joy in the relationships. As you journey with other people, being in relationship to me by definition means having a connection. And so when we are blessed to make connections with other people, particularly as we think about in having a life partner, that is where the growth comes in. And so just to be able to share that with our listeners today, Anna, and with our husbands, or as I like to call them, my life partner, I think it's going to be interesting for others to hear from us in that way that allows us to share some of the joy, some of the growth, and just the different spaces and paths that we're walking together.
So let's dive in because, Connie and I have very different love stories, but not often everyone hears them. And so you're going to kind of hear from the beginning of how it started for both of us. So let's hear from John first on how it all began for you two.
So Connie and I worked at the phone company, Ameritech, and we'd see each other. And for 2 or 3 years, we'd see each other. And then we got into the same building, and she worked one floor below me, and we were going in the stairwell between floors. And Connie suggested, let's try to have lunch to see what synergies we both have. How can we help each other? And of course, Connie's that kind of person. And the more I thought about it, I said, let's go to dinner. And that kind of started our relationship because we had dinner at Reyahd, and we had dinner for about 6 hours. We got there at 6 and we didn't leave until 11 or 12. And I was fascinated by Connie. I had known her, but I'd never really spoke with her. And I found out that she was a religious woman. She knew music, she knew politics, she knew business, she knew this, she knew that. She could talk on any subjects. I was hooked at that point. And eventually, maybe 3 months later, I asked her to go out for her birthday.
So let me just bring some clarity around the staircase notion. The reason we were in the staircase was because I worked, I think it was on the 34th floor, and John worked on the 36th floor. I was in finance and he was in accounting. As he said, we both worked for the same company. So that was the staircase because we were always maintaining our physical fitness. And so we took the stairs versus the elevator. So that was how the staircase story began. And John and I certainly are very different people, and we're very different people then. One of the things that we celebrated about each other was that neither of us are central casting type folks. I am very much in tune with my masculine self as I am with my feminine self. And that might make some people uncomfortable, but it is just the comfort that I have with who I am. And so having met John and another person, he's very comfortable with who he is. Neither one of us were in a rush to get married. That was not, some crowning achievement as I saw it. I think marriage is a wonderful thing. I think it is terrific if people want it, but I'm as equally comfortable with those folks who choose not to be married. It's choices that we make about most things. And so John was in that same space, but the things we had in common were far greater than the things that were different about us. And the things that were different about us, we learned to celebrate. The fact that, John is very much a person who is very blunt. I learned early on, if you ask John how you look and you're not real comfortable or confident in that, honey, he is not the man to ask because
Exactly. Neither of our husbands is to ask.
If the outfit doesn't work, no matter how glorious you think you look, John Blackburn is going to tell you not so much. And it's never mean-spirited. When I first met him, my first thought was, here's a man who is absolutely without guile. He didn't have game. He wasn't trying to rap. He was, this is who I am and this is how I show up. And that is one of his most endearing qualities. And so, Anna V knows this, and we talked about it. We dated for 14 years before we got married. That's a whole nother story, just in terms of how we were living our best lives. And we weren't married, and we didn't live together, folks.
Yes, that's what I love. That's what I want to tell our listeners. That got me. They were together for 14 years and had separate places. And I was like, wait, what?
And not because we had some sanctimonious view or judgment. I do not live in a judgment zone. I'm clear about my values and what matters to me. But it was because of who we were. John owned his house. I owned my house. And, my theory always was, if you're not paying the mortgage, you should not be, whatever. But the point is, it worked for both of us for 14 years. But we knew during that time, and there's a lot of other stories that come up from that we knew that we respected each other enough to allow our own unique tendencies or who we are as people to come through. And that has been wonderful.
That's why I love this, Connie, about your story is that, you did it your own way. You didn't do it how society told you how to do it in terms of marriage or, living in your own spaces for 14 years. That's how you got to where you are now in your long-term relationship. And I think it's important to call that out to our listeners because sometimes in today's age, it's so much pressure and to find your partner, to find your life mate. And that's not reality. And I just think so people need to know that it's okay to do it your own way and grow almost individually. Because I think the way you did it, you got to become yourselves and grow in different ways so that if you decided to take that step into marriage, that you were both ready for it and in your own individual way to grow together. So I just wanted to call that out and underscore that for our listeners.
I think you're so right, Anna. And another thing that's important, our views on marriage and relationships is very much influenced by what we saw growing up. And, that I know for me had a definite impact on what I felt about marriage and a woman's role was inside of marriage based on what I had seen and my perceptions about what it meant. You laugh about this all the time and we do. It's like, John doesn't call me wife, because the word wife for me conjures up something different than it might for other people. And so even how we address each other is important, but it's also born out of what we saw growing up or what influenced our views and values around relationships and how we move into those relationships with each other and with the people we choose to marry or call our life mates or whatever that might look like.
Exactly. Now I know it's my turn to hear from how Reyahd and I's love story began. I don't know if I'm ready for this, but let's hear what Reyahd has to say about how we met.
Well, the story's too long, so I'm just going to sum it up, but let's just put it this way. Anna's lucky because I met her before the other two girls I was
Oh
supposed to be
my
set up with.
goodness. Anna, we're going to need to edit this one too. Edit this, okay?
I will tell this story. So, to make a long story short, we had a mutual friend that we did not know were a mutual friend, clearly. And she said to me, "Hey, there are three women I think you should meet." And I said, "Perfect." I had just been moved to Chicago. So over a month goes by. It's January 2nd, and we are back working at the city. And when looking to see this mutual or waiting in the lobby to meet this mutual friend, there's a glass door. And this woman appears through this glass door. And I was like, well, dang. I was like, she's fine. I was like, Kat needs to introduce me to her. Like, I'm saying this in my head. And as the door is opening, behind this woman is our mutual friend, Kat. And I said, "Hey, Kat." She said, "Hey, how are you?" I was like, "I'm good." She said, "Reyahd, this is Anna, who I told you about, that's really kind and sweet and spiritual." I was like, "Oh my gosh." I said, "It's so nice to meet you." And she said, "Anna, this is Reyahd, who I told you about." And this is literally quote, regardless of what this woman here tries to tell you, this is exactly what she said. "Oh, it's nice to meet you. Gotta go, bye." And puts her hand up and she sprints away. Now, here's the most ridiculous part of all of this, right? Afterwards, the mutual friend tells me that she can't give me Anna's number until she asks Anna. I was like, "What?" So what did I do? I said, "I'm not going to wait for this. I already been waiting like 5 or 6 weeks since I spoke with her." So I went into Outlook, sent the email to her. I said, "Hey, it was great meeting you today. I hope we can connect. I don't want to sound like a creeper, but I found you on Outlook because I couldn't get your number. So I would love it if we could, go out on Friday because this was a Tuesday." So long story short, she says yes. Fast forward to the date, guys. We're sitting there, and it was after work, and we're just talking, and drinks keep flowing.
Hmm.
This was our first date. Her friend comes. I'm like, "What's the friend doing here?" And she tells me, "Well, I had someone come in case I wanted to get out." I was like, "What?"
Good plan,
So
Anna.
then, right, it's very wise. It's smart now I hear about it. So then I ended up paying for drinks for her friend too. This was by far the most expensive first date I'd ever had. I knew I was marrying her. Here's this. That was a Friday night. We hung out on Saturday. I emailed my
Hmm.
sister. We have proof of this, telling her on Sunday or Monday I found the person I'm going to marry.
So, Anna, I love the story that Riyadh told about how you met. Did you know as quickly as Riyadh did that you were getting married?
Absolutely not. I did not know. And he knows this too. We've talked about this. But one of the interesting things that about my husband is that when he knows he wants something, he goes for it. I love that about him. And nothing's going to stop him or be in his way. If he knows this is what God has called on his heart, if this is for him, he's going to go for it. And so he courted me quite strongly. And it was, it was interesting because it was uncomfortable. And here's why, because I remember for my birthday, he got me two birthday cards because he couldn't decide which one to get. And he took me out to dinner and to this Thai restaurant because he knew my favorite. He had heard that I love Thai food. And so we went to this Thai restaurant and he just, all the really nice things he thought about really impressed me. And then also he wanted to meet my family within 3 months of us dating. And I was just like, whoa, this is going so fast. And is this guy real, right? Is this for real? Because in past relationships, and I think this is a lot for people that I talk to, especially women coming out of some past relationships, is that we don't know how to be treated. I had been in
Hmm.
some bad relationships, toxic relationships, and I think I got used to getting breadcrumbs. I got used to being I should be happy for those breadcrumbs. And so that's how I thought I should be treated, right? But when he was doing all these acts of kindness and really showing me that he wanted to be with me, I didn't know how to act. I thought, wait, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? That this is too good to be true. And definitely when he proposed within 11 months of us getting to know each other and dating, I was really freaked out. But that's when my faith came in and really trusted God and said, okay, God, I've kissed a lot of frogs and maybe this is the one that I'm meant to be. And I go back as I kind of reflect too. I'm really happy that I went through those relationships because it gave me the insight to know what I really wanted. And it also showed me with Reyahd of like how I should be treated. And I tell a lot of my friends when they're navigating relationships is this guy, if he wants to be with you, he's going to find a way to be with you. He's going to move heaven and earth to show you how much he loves and cares for you and his actions, not just his words. And that's what Reyahd has shown me throughout our marriage is how to show up, how to love someone, how to share your faith, how to build a life. And even when times of trouble, he's not been afraid to say, you know what? I'm going to dig deep with you, Anna. If we have to get marriage counseling or go to therapy, he's said yes. He's never shied away from it. And it showed that commitment to me and putting God at the front of our marriage, that's why I really love this man and continue to work even when it gets hard.
I think that's so powerful, Anna. And what you said about certainly learning from prior relationships, understanding that if a relationship requires us to quote unquote change ourselves too much, that might not be the best relationship for us. Having a wedding is one thing, a marriage is something totally different. The wedding is the party, the celebration, all of that. But being married is the everyday working through exactly what you talked about. And I think it's so important for people to hear that you understood that, I deserve and I'm worth someone who celebrates who I am and how I am. My godparents, who were just such great role models, they got married after 6 weeks of knowing each other, 6 weeks, and stayed married. She just passed away about a year ago, and they were married for, I know, well over 50 or 60 years. So there is that quote unquote love at first sight. But one of the things he said to me, I remember, was he said, I delight in her. How wonderful is that to have someone who delights in you, all the good, the different parts of us. So I celebrate the fact that you found a person who delights in you and who understands that walk and how important it was. I'm going to go to something, we always talk about is authenticity. And I talk about self-awareness, knowing who we are. I have a girlfriend who always says, Connie, you're not easy. Well, no, and I'm not cheap either, honey. But the
No,
point is, we are not. And so we're not in this for the easy part of it. It's for the growth. And if we really grow as humans, it's in relationship with other people, right? Usually only the people we love the most can really take us to different levels of emotion. And so it's knowing who I am as a person and not expecting you to fix me, because it's not your job to fix me.
No.
I'm not looking for somebody to complete me. I am looking for someone where we together become even more impactful. And I think what you said is so important. It's about you decided this is who you were. And you were real clear about what you cried in a relationship.
And I think two things I want to go off of what you said, self-awareness. And I think that if I hadn't become even more self-aware the last 2 years of my life, really digging deep and asking questions and trying to really understand my purpose, and then asking Reyahd, I remember last fall, I had a question for him about his purpose. And he was also kind of wrangling with it too. We're both coming up on 40. We've been married for 10 years. It's that kind of new decade. And I now understand when people talk about people separating early, not hitting that 10-year mark, I can see why. Because a lot of times, couples can grow individually, but not grow together. And it took me to be honest with myself about, okay, I'm at a new decade. I'm rethinking again, career and who I'm showing up to be, what my purpose is, how I want to be a mom, all these things. And if Reyahd had not also done the same and had been brave enough to say to me, I don't know what my purpose is. I need to work on this. And if he had not said earlier this year, yes to let's do this marriage life group, and then talking weekly, honestly, getting really honest and uncomfortable with our weekly discussions privately to these questions that were being asked of us. And then in this small marriage life group that God called on our hearts to lead, I don't know where we would be right now a year later. And he said something to me profound, actually, on a recent trip. He said, I've fallen more in love with you the last 6 months of our marriage in a deeper place. And I think it's because we both grew individually, but came together to grow to this next era and decade of our marriage. And so again, that's something that I think a lot within your marriage. Of course, you're going to go through these reflection periods and growth periods and self-awareness. And that's really important to do that individually and then together. And the other second thing I wanted to say is I had a great piece of advice from a woman I lived with in Michigan when I was just a young person in politics. And she said she made a list of the qualities she was looking in a person to share her life with. And when I was single and between a relationship and meeting Reyahd, I made that list. And it wasn't just like tall, handsome, colored eyes, financially stable. No, I really dug deep on kind of what I wanted in a life partner. And our friend Bella talks about this too, in making that list, right? So that kind of those qualities again that you're searching for. So if someone comes your way, and they don't have to meet that list perfectly, but just reminds you again of what you're worthy of what you said, Connie, and what you deserve. And sometimes we don't often do that.
I love this. And you said so much in terms of longevity, because we also see people who've been in marriages a long time, breaking up after
Yes.
20, 30, 40 years. Why? Because of what you said. They grew apart. Those check-ins that we need to have. And life happens. John had his health journey. And it's the parts of the marriage vows, sickness and health. Those things come. How strong is that relationship glue that you have to navigate through those storms and to come out on the other side? But it's the constant checking in. How am I growing as a person, right? It's not doing everything you like
Yes.
or that the other person likes all the time. It's saying, no, John has a life. He has friends. He has things that he enjoys that I don't need to be a part of, right? You have
100%.
things you enjoy, right? You do, we do our, let's go away and have time to figure ourselves out. So it's being confident enough in who we are as individuals that, we let our husbands be who they are. I'm not here to fix, shame, or blame. We're here to grow and understand in relationship with each other. That's important to say.
Well, both of our husbands told us they wanted women who were strong and self-sufficient, and that's what they got. But let's hear what John has to say. I love this analogy and illustration he paints.
I told Connie when I first met her an example. If we were out on a boat and it was a storm and I got knocked out, I would like my mate to get us to shore. So I've always wanted women that were themselves and they knew what they want and they could think under pressure. That was the point in that analogy or that little story, is you'd like a person to be calm under fire. I think the women that raised me were that same kind of way. And I expected from most women that they would handle their business.
And I love what John says about, wanting a person who can navigate through difficult times and understanding and having a plan. And anybody who knows me knows that if I have a problem, I'm going to come with a plan as best I can. But I also think it's important for us, Anna, that our listeners understand you and I both agree that we do not subscribe to this strong Black or strong Latina woman myth, because that is burdensome. We also have moments, as we talk about, in being vulnerable. We know now, I've learned to ask for help. And so lest anyone think that Reyahd and John are saying, we want these strong women. No, we know that we're human as well. That's where our faith comes in. That's where our circle of friends come in, that you and I talk to each other. But it is important that you understand that the person who is in your life that you choose to share your life with, they understand how you roll, if you will. That if you're a person like me who wants to be a part of the decision making, but also we're flexible enough that if this is something you do really well, then go have at it. There aren't expectations. John's a CPA, has a master's in taxation and a master's in business. Have at the numbers, do all those things. Sure, I have a degree in finance and all that, but there are things that he is more qualified to do, right? I'm not trying to do that tax return. That's John Blackburn all day. But there are other areas where I bring strengths to the relationship. And see, that's the cool part about this. I call that the unforced rhythms of grace. When you look at your person and you say, do this so exceedingly well. I celebrate that. I delight in that. I don't need to be a part of it. I am, as a partner, we're going to talk about it and you're going to let me know. We don't have any secret things we're doing apart from one another like that. But I'm comfortable enough in who I am to know where John has strengths and gifts and to celebrate his strengths and gifts, and he can do the same. But we both know that when we need to step up or be stronger, we're there for each other. That is such a comforting place to be in a world that's chaotic most of the time, that my person is there. And you're right, to be able to navigate through storms together with love, with the kind of peace that is required to do that, and hopefully end in joy.
I love that, Connie. I really look to you and John right now. I'm not gonna lie, I really do.
Oh,
And I'm early in my marriage at 10 years, and I'm also thinking about this like strong narrative, the strong woman. I've been a strong woman my whole life, and I've always been the strong, trying to make my parents proud, trying to make myself proud, trying to stuff emotions down and not to let the world see that they've hurt me, not let, exes have seen that they hurt me or politics seen that they hurt me. And over time with my own husband, I'm the most vulnerable at home. And we've had to have this conversation because sometimes he could treat me like, not like the world treats me, but could be so direct and honest. He's very direct, honest with his feedback, right? And we'd had to have this conversation of oh, those words hurt. Why would you come at me like that? And it's not his way of coming at me, but he's now had to understand, oh, wow, wait, Anna is showing me her full heart at home. She's taken that armor off for the day, and I'm here. And recently, there's been a lot of important people in our lives and around us that have separated, that have not made it work. Some short-term marriages and some very long-term marriages, and been a little painful for me to see. And I've had to have that discussion with him. I am so open right now as a vulnerable wife to you. It's a little scary. You're taking that risk, right? Being with this person and showing them your whole life. But I'm so lucky and grateful that I have a place where I can be that way. And I have a place with my husband, but I also have a place with some of my dear friends too, which is amazing to have a place where you can be brave and courageous, but you can also be vulnerable and open-hearted and say, hey, I feel a little tender today. Can you guys hold space for me? And I know I've sent some messages to you, Connie, and to our kitchen table and my close dear friends. And that is building a community of love. And I'm so lucky my husband chooses to be a part of that too. And also he's totally okay with me being with my friends too. And I love that balance, that he doesn't get jealous or any of those things. And even though he loves me being a strong and ambitious woman, I think he likes to brag about, the things that I've done. And he really helps me feel like confident enough to fly and soar. And I love that he doesn't ever resent me for that or ever feel insecure about that. Like he's always like on it, ready to be by my side. I call him my little Dougie sometimes, like with Kamala. And I'm really grateful to have that I can be, who I am truly and authentic at home. I don't have to have that armor on that I have to take out to the real world to be that strong woman or mom. And then lastly, to our moms listening too, what I've loved to see about my husband in terms of leaning into childcare, like helping with childcare. I think there's been a lot of conversation where, our husbands pulling the weight? Are they doing the emotional giving of the children? And Reyahrd's come a long way in learning how to be emotionally there for his daughter. And in fact, he's done bedtime every single night the last 6 months, almost, because my daughter prefers that her dad does the bedtime and reading and the snuggles. And I love that they have that relationship. So I think for, our parents listening out there too, that it's totally okay to let your husband figure out his own way to parent and his own way to be there for his child, not just the way you might want him to be or the way that you are. And that's also been a joy to see my husband come into fatherhood. And with all of this, a really funny story came up while we were recording about communication and being vulnerable. Let's listen to this. But I was so proud of Reyahd last night because I came home, was in my own head and, self-doubt and all the things we talked about, Connie. And he came out in the backyard and he was like, I want to keep talking. I know you were talking, but if you don't want to keep talking, but I really want to hear what happened today. What made you feel this way? And then he even said, do you want me to hear, do you want to hear what I think, or do you just want me to listen? Do you know how many years that has taken though? Reyahd, be honest.
I still don't do it. I just was trying to be nice last night.
At least you're honest.
Oh, I love that honesty. I love
Well,
that,
because what's
Riyadh.
the point? Here's my thing. This is where Anna and I are very different. What's the point of us having a conversation if you just want me to listen and not respond or tell you what I think? There's no point if there's no conversation. You might as well talk to a wall if I can't even say anything because I'm just supposed to listen. Okay.
So that's the total point of how men process in women, right? Men want to fix it in some cases. And like you said, we
Correct.
can't generalize, Anna, right? Men are like, show me the problem and I will
Yep.
fix it for you. Riyadh, I'm so proud of you that you did that. That's wonderful.
Thank you. The issue, but remember, the difficulty is the consistency. So,
Yes. You're getting there.
um,
Thank
and
you,
so you
brother.
guys clearly married the two right people. They married the
We,
right people, John.
oh,
100.
I think we agree because you're
Yeah.
right. It's yin and yang, right? It's like you are so right. The whole notion of how we move through things, and I'll say that to John. My favorite thing to say to him if I'm going through or having a difficulty, I'll say to John, John, tell me it's going to work out. I'll just say, tell me it's going to work out. He knows I'm on a
Jeez.
plan. I'm going to do all the things. Tell me it's
Wow.
going to work out, and he'll say, it is going to work out. Okay, we'll go through whatever it is together. But he's learned, I think, in all of our years together, it's not the fixing part because he knows if I got a problem, I'm working on a plan. But it's more
Mm,
of the support. It's that part of me saying, I'm going to be vulnerable now because all my life I've been the strong one for other people and help. But this is my place to say, honey baby, which is my nickname for him. I'm in a place where this is a lot. This is a lot. And I just need you to hold space for me and just tell me it's going to be okay. And
man,
Yes.
right? It's the asking for help piece. And it took a while for me to get there. So, yes,
that's
Riyadh, I
awesome.
did.
Connie, I love that this conversation. I know there's more to come, but I've loved that we were brave enough to dive into this topic
Yes, this
today.
was this was big for us. You're right. And I think another thing you said I don't want it to get left behind is the notion of we have relationships with other people in terms of our girlfriend circle or our friend circle. That's so important. It is not to lose ourselves in the marriage. It is not to
Yes.
lose ourselves in that relationship. I think more interesting because I have outside interests.
Yes.
Right? I do other things. I read, have other friends. And so we bring that kind of interesting part to the relationships that we have. And for any individual out there who might not be in a couple kind of relationship, that's fine too.
Yes. You
I
don't
didn't
need
get
that
married.
label.
Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't get married until very late in life. And wasn't sad about it, was not apologetic about it. So what Anna and I are sharing today is certainly our story to open up more, but it's also the joy of when you know who you are, when you know how you are, when you know where you are and where you want to be, it makes it a little bit easier to determine who ought to take that walk with you, who earns the right to be that person in your life, who is your person, that individual with whom you want to share that kind of relationship. That, there was a book or something I read long ago that said, men are just dessert. I don't want to disparage men, but the point is, you are important, certainly as a woman, in this case, as we're talking about it, but all relationships, however you choose to love, to celebrate that. The most important part of that is to love and to be loved fully and wholly and equitably for the divine creation that you are.
And I agree. And you deserve that. And the most important relationship that I've learned over time is the relationship with myself and how much I've come to love myself. Because how can I expect anyone else to love me if I can't even love myself or feel that I'm worthy or deserve that? And I think that's something I'll continue to learn and keep building on. And I've also learned that when I am happy and I am whole, which is my friendships, the work that I do, those things fill me up. That I don't put that burden on my partner, my husband, to bring that joy or happiness to me, because that's not fair to him if you place all of that on someone else to make you happy or feel whole or feel loved. That's not fair. So I have learned in this journey that it's totally okay to have your cup filled with all your sister friends and your community and your faith and my child now, all those things, and still have space in my heart for my husband and the great love he gives me. But it takes a whole community of love to fill your cup, and that's okay, and makes us, even better partners and people.
So, Anna, we covered a lot today. We moved beyond our concerns about vulnerability. I think we got there. But as you and I have discussed so often, there is so much more to discuss, to share, to talk about, both our public and private, professional personas, and the way we've navigated those roles. And so I think we'll come back with another episode to talk about exactly those items, how we navigate in relationship with our partners. And as always, we want to navigate and break through to joy. And so as we end today, we're wishing you joy. The Joy in the Breakthrough podcast is hosted by Anna Valencia and me, Connie Lindsey.
And podcasting is a team sport, so thank you to our dream team, our producer, Anna Deshawn, our editor, Laura Jimenez, our video editor, Joelle Ortiz.
To learn more about today's guests or the show, visit our show notes on our website, joyitbpod.com, and on Instagram at joyitbpod.
Joy in the Breakthrough is a production of The Cube, spelled with a Q. The Cube is your #1 curated platform to discover the best BIPOC podcasts. Support this show and more like it by joining the Cube app and follow the Cube across social media at the Cube app.
Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again on the next episode.